Hey there guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be working on another JavaScript project, and this one is going to be a tad bit different. We're not going to be using any frameworks or library, except for the CSS side. We're going to be using Tailwind because Tailwind. We're going to be just writing pure vanilla JavaScript, but we're going to be doing it not with functional programming. We're going to be using object-oriented programming. Rather than using React, I want to do a couple of projects, vanilla JavaScript projects, where object notation will be used. So I am trying to learn C#, and that is object-oriented programming at its core. So I think doing a couple of these projects will also help out. And what I've found out is a lot of people do skip the step of just learning vanilla JavaScript. Mine was a tad bit different. I did start off trying to learn vanilla JavaScript, and then React kind of was just there, and I'm like, React. So rather than start from vanilla JavaScript all the way to React, I kind of did a little bit of vanilla JavaScript and then went to React, which I write, like you guys know, in functional programming. So now trying to advance my skill set or refine my skill set with learning object-oriented programming, I figured why not go back to the basics and relearn classes, constructors, all those kind of things, and build simple projects, some of which I've already built before using the React library. This time it's just going to be using vanilla JavaScript to build it. So here we're going to be using HTML, Tailwind CSS, so it's going to be compiled, and vanilla JavaScript. So we're going to be building this web application, which I'm going to be showing you in a second. So if you do like the video, please don't forget to subscribe, like, and share the video. Let's get started. Okay guys, so as you can see, this is going to be the weather app we're going to be creating. It's a simple weather app. We're not using React. We're not using any JavaScript framework or library. It's just pure vanilla JavaScript, like I've said throughout this recording. So for example, what this can do is it's a single page application. So let's say we're in what's a city name? Let's just say Chicago. So we're in Chicago. The state code is Illinois. Now if we search for it, as you can see, we're in Chicago. This is the weather, and this is the description of the weather. So it's just a simple application. The only difference is we're going to be writing all this in object-oriented programming. So with that said, let's jump into the video. All right, so we have Visual Studio Code open. So this is the IDE I'm going to be using. We're just going to create we're going to be doing all this together from scratch. So we can go to the terminal, and we're going to be making a directory, and I'm just going to call this weather app OOP YouTube. Weather app, yeah, OOP. Let's just say weather OOP YouTube, because I believe I have another one called weather app saved. And within this, we're just going to CD into it. And I should have not made that capital, but whatever. We're just going to CD into it and call that weather OOP YouTube. Clear. Okay, and now we can just open a file. There we go. So typically you can open a file using code dot or dot code or something like that, but there's something wrong with mine, so it doesn't really do that. So here, what we're gonna do to begin with, let's just open that terminal again, is go npm init. And we're doing this because we're going to be using Tailwind. Let's just clear this. So just enter all the way until you see this package.json. So when that's done, now what we have to do is, let's just go over to, actually, let's create a folder here, just called dist. And then within this folder, we're just going to call this index.html. And let's put our app.json in there also. I said JSON, app.js in there also. So this is what we're going to be working with primarily. Now we can just go to, let's go over to this in Tailwind, get started. So we're just gonna grab this and install it in here. And as you can see, everything configures over here. Then we're gonna grab this and we're gonna go right in here and do this. So as you can see, there's a source folder. We don't have that yet, so we can just quickly create that. So we'll just have source. And within this source, we're gonna have our input.css. That's pretty much all we have to do. And then here, let's just change this to dist because that's where we're gonna house our HTML and our HTML and our JavaScript. So we're just gonna do this. Cool. We're pretty much done with that. And now all we have to do is within input.css, we're just going to copy that in there. This part, as you can see, it's src source / input.css. And then let's just grab this first. So we're going to skip this step for a second. Grab that. Come right back to index.html. So for a shortcut to create the index.html, we can just quickly put in the exclamation point, enter, and it's going to give us this. And if you guys know how to do this already, you can just skip this portion of it. This is more for beginners to just know how to set it up. But if you're well advanced enough to skip this process, then by all means go ahead. Various different people watch the video, so I don't just want to assume everyone knows everything. So now, as you can see, I took out the whatever was here. Let's see. Yeah, I took this out because we're already in we just need output.css. We don't need anything else. And now we can grab this and come into package.json. And here, we'll just put a comma here. We can now say dev. And we're just going to paste that in and take out the npx. Save that. And then once that's saved, we can come down here also and just do the same thing and just start. So now you can see there's an output.css here. That is what we're looking for. So that's done. So let's see if we set this up correctly. Let's just close out of all this. I'm going to be closing out of this document here. I can close out of this also. And then let's open this with live server. Let's see. Oh, and for those of you who don't know how to use live server, all you have to do is come here. Come to extension and look up live server. And there should be a live server launcher development, but just install this one. That's the one I have. So you can install this live server. And once you do, anytime you right click on your HTML file within the code, you can just open with live server. So that's one tip to do this. So now if we say h1 hello world, as you can see, it says hello world. Now let's see if our CSS compiled. So class background black. Yep, there we go. So as you can see, it worked. Awesome. So we're all set on the CSS part. So let's just work on the skeleton first. So let's just work on our HTML file, and then we can, once we're done creating the outline of what we want to do, it makes it so much easier to go to the JS portion. Okay, so now we're just going to start from the body. And what we're going to say is, let's just give this a class of background gray 100. Cool. And we can say, let's give it a div. Okay, cool. And class container auto. Cool. So as you can see, nothing's showing now. So we're just creating our the div and various containers and things like that. We're just trying to set up the the CSS portion as quickly as we can. So here we're also going to say max width MD. So max width is medium, and then we're going to say margin, the horizontal margin is going to be auto, background white, padding of 6 rounded. And if you guys don't like to use Tailwind, you can also mirror this using your standard CSS. But I just found Tailwind easier. The only thing is, I mean, it just has to compile is all. So now we have our div set. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep. So we have our div set. Now we can actually start writing our header. So we're our header, and I already know these classes because I already built this out. So I'm just mirroring what I did before. That's why it seems like I'm not thinking about what I'm doing. So cool. So we have this. Now for H1, we're just going to say water app. I said water. Weather app. And as you can see, that's exactly what we get. So we did this H1 class is pertaining to this weather app text, and then it's within this div, which is basically this background white, padding of 6 around, rounded, the thing is rounded large, and it has a shadow. So that all pertains to this div. So now that we have that, what we want to do is create another div. And you guys can also add whatever you want to add. So if you want this to be centered or anything, you can also center it. I'm just going to keep it this way just because that's how I had it in the original. But you can add whatever flavor you want to it. It's pretty much just the styling, however you want to make it. This is not really the most important part of the video. This is just to show you what I did to get to the thought process to get to where I'm at, to get the project done. So now we just finished out the H1 header. So we're just going to say div class again, and this div is going to be have a margin bottom of 4. Cool. And within this, now we're going to have our input. So this is where we're going to be able to type things in. Input type is going to equal text. Now we need ID. So if you guys have been following my videos, you realize that when I did use React, I didn't really use ID in classes as much. The only time I would use class is when I was like using Tailwind to style it. But because we're going to be using Vanilla JS, we're going to need to identify whatever we're doing, either via ID or class. And this one's going to be ID heavy, so you're going to be getting a lot of elements via the ID. So ID is going to be state code. Oh, sorry. It's going to be the city input. Let's make this small letters. City input. Cool. So we're going to make that camel case. And then placeholder is going to equal enter state code. I'm not going to add a label. You can go ahead and add a label, but I just didn't. Enter state code. The class is going to equal border rounded medium, padding of 2, width is full. As you can see, it pops up right there. I'll just close that out. And now we can go to the next one. Actually, what we can do is just use a linter here. Let's bring this down. And we're going to have the same thing or similar, and we're just going to change state ID here to state code input. Placeholder is going to be, well, so we made an error here. So this should say enter city name, or just say, yeah, enter city name. Cool. So enter city name, enter state code. Cool. So let's see. So enter state code, border rounded medium, pattern of 2 with full, and we just want to give this a little space at the top, so we're just going to say that. Cool. So now we have that bit of space, and we're pretty much about done with what we're doing. So I think I'm missing a div here somewhere. Or did I just, oh, there it is. I didn't close out or something. Cool. So now that we've done that, do I need a div? Yes, but not right now. So let's see. So now we can say button. So now we need our button. And the button's going to have an ID of search button. It's going to have a class. Let's move this down a bit so we can see what we're doing. Of background blue 500, text white, pen X 4, pen Y 2, and we're going to have it rounded medium. So this is the div. I mean, this is the button class. So now we're just going to put search within it. And as you can see, it expands, and that's our search. So we're pretty much done. So now all we have to do is within this div we created, we can just put in the div ID is equal to results section. And what this is going to do is right below here, what I showed you in the original, it's going to have our results show. So whatever we type in there is going to show here in our results. Cool. Now we're going to say h2 class is equal to text XL font semi-bold. Margin bottom of 2. Cool. And now we can say ID is equal to city. And we're just going to leave it blank. We're going to do the same thing. Actually, we're going to use P class. So text large, margin bottom of 2. The ID is going to equal temperature. And we're going to close out of this. And now we can just bring this down 1. And for this, we're just going to have it as text small. It's not going to be a space because we already have margin bottom 2 here. And then here, it's going to be description. Let's see if I can spell this right. Description. Awesome. So nothing's going to show because we didn't put anything in there to show. We just created the class for it. So now all we have to do is say script source is equal to app.js and save. So now we are connecting this app.js that we're going to use to our index.html. So let's just do this. Title, we're going to call it weather app. As you can see, it changed the title here. Cool. So we're pretty much done with this. So now we're just going to focus on the app.js. So let's do this. Let's split this so we can see what we're going to be grabbing. So in object-oriented programming, the main difference is the fact that we're going to be using something called classes and constructors. In functional programming, like the name says, we're going to be using something called functions. So objects, classes pretty much are the blueprint of whatever you're going to build. So an example of class would be, think about a library system. So within, let's say you're trying to build out the architecture for a library system. So what the libraries mostly have, just books, right? So rather than writing a name for every single book in the system, what you can do is you can create a blueprint that instances will be generated out of. So meaning, if I say this library is going to have this is going to have books, what we can say is, okay, the book is going to have a name, it's going to have an author, it's going to have an ISBN code, it's going to have what else do books have? It's gonna have genre. Cool. So that's just the blueprint of the book. It's just those four categories: the name, author, ISBN name, and genre. So now, when we want to create a book, it's called creating an instance. When we want to do that in the system, what we can do is say, okay, now we have a new book. So if we want to put the Lightning Thief, Percy Jackson, if we want to put that in the system, we can now say new book is equal to Percy Jackson, new book dot Percy Jackson, or something like that. And we don't have to now say, we don't have to do that 100 times. What we can just say is we can take from that blueprint, attach Percy Jackson to it as the name of the book, and then just fill out the parameters such as genre, fiction, author, Rick Riordan, things like that. We just put that in, and it generates a new book. But as we work on this should make a great deal of sense. So for example, now we're making a weather app, right? And let's come here real fast. Let's go to Open Weather API. Is it map or API? Okay, so this is where we're going to be getting our information from, the Open Weather Map. If you follow this, if you follow my channel, you know we've already created an app for this using this API. All you have to do is sign up. Just get the free tier. You don't have to sign up for any. You don't have to do any pay. This is just a portfolio type project. So all you have to do is go to API. I'm not going to click on that because my API will show. So all you have to do is click on API, and when you do that, you get your API, and you want to use current weather data. So this is the one you want to use. So let me just sign out here so my credentials don't show. Let's go here. And let's go to Open Weather. So this is the one we're going to be using, the current weather map, current weather data. So if I go to API doc, these are the, so this is the one we're going to be using. Let's just grab this for example. So within this API response, we're going to be getting the description, the main forecast, which is rain. We can get the temperature. We can get the visibility. So this you can think of as the class. So just these parts. So these are what we want. So these objects have, it's kind of like these objects are there, but we just want to grab what we want. So what we're going to be getting with the blueprint we want to create pretty much. So like I said, once I start typing it in, it'll make a lot more sense than me trying to explain it. So here we can say class weather and create this class. Now we're going to do something called constructor. There we go. And with the constructor, it's going to tell us what we want to construct. We want to construct the city, the temperature, and the description. Those are the three we need. Now you can add as many as you want to it, but this is the one I'm going to use. So description. Yep, spelled that right. That's a tricky one. So now we want to be able to grab these parameters and use them for our instance. So use them for our objects when we create an object, such as the actual weather that we are creating. So this is how we're going to go about it. We're going to use the word, the phrase this, the word this, and city is going to equal to city. So every time we append something with city, or we say city, we're going to refer to this city that this city parameter. That's all it's saying. So at the end, everything's going to make a lot more sense once you put it together. If this is your first time doing object oriented, it's going to take a little while, especially coming from functional. So description. I don't know why this is, yeah, that should be that. Cool. So just like that, we're done with our weather. We're done with our blueprint. This is what we want to create. We just created a blueprint for it. So now let's forget about this for right now. Now we can go down here and create a class called update UI. And what we're doing here is, let's say you type in Chicago, Illinois into the input, right? And you get the data. Let's just say somehow we get this data. We've written out the objects. We've written out the methods that's going to give us the data. So now if I put in like Los Angeles, California into the input, how do we update that? How now we're writing a schematic to like do so. And the difference here is rather than use a constructor, we're going to say static. So here we said constructor, here we're going to say static. And what this static is doing is saying this methods that are written within this update UI class can be called independently. So we don't need to create an instance that's going to be like an instance going to be new update UI and whatever to call on the objects. We don't need to do any of that. So we don't need to create an instance, is what I'm trying to say, to call the objects and to call the method. Sorry, I don't know why I keep saying objects. We don't need to do that instance. We don't need to create that instance to call the methods. And think of methods the same way you would think of functions. So if you're coming from the function oriented world, it's I don't want to say it's interchangeable because I'm not 100% sure, but it's in the same context. So here we're going to say static. And like I said, by the time it's done, you will understand a lot of things better. I'm just trying to, I'm going a little bit further than I'm typing in terms of I'm explaining before I type, just in order to give you an idea of what's coming. So once you see it written out, it makes a lot more sense. So static update weather. So this is going to be our method. So as you can see, it looks similar to a function. So we can call this update weather within this class, rather than say, all right, let's create something else that we're going to append to update weather to call it. So we're going to say document dot get element by ID, or you can say query selector. It's whichever one you want to say. We're going to be grabbing the city. So where is it? So here we're going to be using this. Where's the results section? There it is. So let's just make this space. So we're going to be working with this because this is the UI we're going to be updating. This is where we're going to be putting our information. So we're going to update city. This is the ID, and we're going to say text context is equal to weather dot what is it? No, just weather. There we go. Dot city. So what we're saying here is document.get element by ID. So we're getting this city ID, and we're gonna append a string to it, a text content to it, and text content is gonna equal weather.city. So whatever we're getting from the API call is gonna be the weather and the city. It's gonna be the city, and we're gonna append it to this, and that's what it's gonna show us. So it's pretty much us just so here we're just going to be putting whatever information the city is into this h2 tag, is in layman's terms is what we're doing. So we're going to be doing that about 2-3 times, I believe. Yeah. So let's see. We're going to say temperature weather dot temperature. Okay, and here we're going to be, and we're going off of this. Remember, this is the blueprint, so we're going off of description. Yep, and it's going to be description. So should I skip this step real fast? Okay, so let's just leave it as this first. We're gonna skip this step. There's one step we're gonna skip, and we're just gonna do this here, just so we know to come back to it. This step is pretty much the CSS portion. We could just leave it at that for right now. We'll just come back to it. Yeah. So now we're also gonna bring this up, And then we're done basically with this class update UI. So what we want to do now is say document dot get element by ID search button dot add event listener. There we go. And this is going to be a click. So meaning every time we click the search button, we want something to happen. So we're going to say async arrow notation, and we're going to say const city name. So we're going to create a variable called city name, and it's going to equal document dot get element by ID city input. So now we're working with where is it? We're working with this. So this is what we're working with now. So city input dot value. Oh, wait, what? Okay, that's why. Okay, I was like, what? Okay, and this should just say value. Okay. Cool. And now we're going to say const state code is equal to, and so we started from the top here, and now we're at state code input. So we're just going to call it state code document dot get element by ID. I'm going to say state code input dot value. So now we're going to write the logic for what happens when you click this search button. So if city name and state code are present, then we want to say try const API key is equal to, so we're just going to leave this as a blank string for right now, and we're going to say const response is equal to await, because it's asynchronous. So remember, you have it as asynchronous here, so you're going to have await fetch, and we're going to use backticks. So now we're going to go back to this, and we're going to be using, let's see, I want to pick the right one. Yeah, we're going to be using this city name, country code, actually this city name, state code, country code, API key. So let's just copy that. So those are going to be the parameters we're working with. So just paste that in there. And for this, let's just put a sign like that there. And the city is going to be named city name. The state code is going to be state code. And rather than have country code, so you can use country code. You can have another input here, country code. I'm just going to put US because I only search within the US. So US and this. So you can, if you want to have, if you want to make yours have a country code that you can put in, you just bring this down, have country code. You need to have another input that's for country code, and yeah, that's pretty much it. And then have the country code here also. So just want to make sure that there's nothing else you have to do. So, and then API key is going to be this, but this is going to say API key. And then you also want to have the metric, I believe. So let's see. Yeah, so you can have the units of measurement. So I think I used imperial. So which one is default? When you don't use this, the format is standard by default. So temperature is available in Fahrenheit, Celsius, and Kelvin units. So for this, I believe I used Imperial. Yeah. So you just copy what they have here. Units equals here. Actually, let's just copy that. Copy, and then come straight over here and paste. So let's just take this part out. Oh, went too far back. There it is. US and API ID equals API key, and units is equal to Imperial. So let's see, where do we mess up? Oh, okay. So we don't have a catch. That's why. So so we're not done with this actually. So now we can say const data is equal to await response.json. There we go. So whatever data we get, we're just gonna plug it into the variable called data, and it's gonna equal the response from here .json. So yeah, and now we can say const weather is equal to new weather, which is an instance. So now we're creating an instance of this weather here. So now we can say const weather is equal to new weather, and we're gonna have data dot name, data dot main temp, data dot main dot temp. We're gonna have data dot weather dot description. And the reason we're doing this is because when we do get, so if we go back to the response, I want this open. There it is. So when you go back to this response, let's see. So for the description, let's see. Yep, here it is. So we have weather, and then it's in an array of objects. So we have to be able to go in there and grab the description. So we're grabbing the first object within the array, which is 0, and then we're grabbing description from it. That's why it's data.weather. So .weather, and then we grab the first index in the array, and then it's going to be the object description. That's why it's like that. Data.main.temp is going to be similar. So data.main, here it is, except this is not in an array. It's not within the array. It's just by itself. So we go into main. So we go into, well, data is what we call the response. So we go into data.main.temp. This one. And you can play around with it. You can grab the humidity. You can grab, there's so many things you can do with it. I'm just grabbing the common ones. So now we just go right back to Chrome. We just go back to Video Studio Code and exit out of that. So that's pretty much all we need, because we only needed city. We only needed the name of the city, the temperature, and a description. So that's all we're grabbing here. So we created a new instance, and this .city is referring to this name. This .temperature is referring to this temp. That's pretty much what we're doing. So now, because within I just want to make sure it's still within try. Yeah, so within try, now that we have that, we want to be able to update the UI with this information, and we're going to put update weather. So we're calling this this static method. So we're calling this within try, and we're saying update the weather with weather. So update the weather with this constant weather, because the constant weather is holding is an instance for this. So now we can put catch, and we can say error. And in JavaScript, you have to say ERR, because if you put error, it doesn't like that. That's what I found out. So console.error, and you can say error with weather data fetch. And you can just do comma and have ERR. And then just semicolon. Cool, and we should be done. So now let's see. Oh, okay, so the reason this will not work is because I didn't put an API key here. I don't want to create a env and then put you're still gonna see it when I do it. So I just want to skip that step. But if you do end up creating an API key, or you do end up getting it, all you have to do is just type in that string in here within these, it's a string, so just put it within the quotations. So type the string in here and it should work. So I'm going to put mine off camera and see if it works. But for the most part, this is the code. So this is how this is going to work. And this is the code for this. So we're pretty much, let's just save this and let's save that. So we're done with this. So I actually forgot. So remember we said we were going to come right back to this area. So this part is what shows our data. So before we put the API key in, or before I put the API key, let me just show you that, because I actually forgot. So what we want to do is, so since we're still within update weather, so we're still updating the UI, what we want to do is say results. We're using this just so we're clear on what we're doing. So we're using this ID results section, and we're going to say results section dot style dot display is equal to block. So we're going to have it at block to begin with, and then we're going to say results section dot class list dot add. So we're adding a bunch of classes to it. We're going to say shadow medium. So this is just basically, if you had a class here, it's just whatever this class would be is what you're showing here. And I'll explain to you why we're doing that in a second. Let me just type all this out. So shadow medium, margin top 6. I'm gonna say background white. I'm gonna say padding 6. I'm gonna say rounded large, and that's it. So what we're doing here is we're saying when there's nothing being showed, we're just gonna display it as block. And when there's a result, we're gonna say we're gonna add these things. So we're gonna show it as a shadow. We're gonna have a margin top is 6. We're gonna have a background as white. The pattern around is gonna be 6, and then the border is gonna be rounded. So don't forget to add that part. Don't forget to add that part. This part is very important. So now we can go ahead and put the API key and see if it works. So I will add the API key and I will show you what the application looks like. Okay, so now we have the API key inputted. So you should have put the API key, and all you have to do was just copy your API key and just plug it into the middle of both quotations. So that's all you have to do. So let's see if it works. So I'm gonna put in Chicago and I'm gonna put in Illinois, and it should work. Okay, so let's see where we have a problem. So let's inspect this console. So there's something wrong with add event listener. So let's see, let's do this. Okay, so let's go back to the code. Okay, so it says on line 24, add event listener, click. So let's see what's going on. So document.get element by ID, cannot read the properties. So if we come down here, what did we say the ID was? Search button. Okay, so here's why. So this should be capital. So this should be capital S. Cool. So now I'm gonna plug in the API key again, and then it should definitely work now. So let's just close out of this. Yeah, so I'm gonna plug in the API key and go back to the weather app. Okay, so here's the app once more. So let's try it again. So Chicago, Illinois. Okay, so what's the deal this time? I spelled something wrong, didn't I? Line 26. So let's see if I can do that without showing the API key. Let's see. Yep, I can do that. So document. Let's save that. And let's go back here. So we're going to say Chicago again. And then let's see, Illinois. Awesome. So here we go. So here's Chicago, 79.23, few clouds. So this is going to be the app. So I know they looked a little different on the thin, but there were slight adjustments made to the CSS. So this is what it looks like. So if we're in Los Angeles, California, CA, right? Let's see, Los Angeles. Oh, it's why can't I spell G-E-L-E-S? G-E-L-E-S. Los Angeles. So what we could do is create. So now we can go ahead and create like error handlers. So for example, when I did that, it could just say, hey, city not found, rather than do nothing. But that's going to be a little bit more comprehensive. I'm not trying to get into that right now. All you would have to do is go into the if then and then do all that. But that's besides the point at this stage, because it's doing what we need it to do. Now, if you guys want to see it with error handling, just comment in the section and I can just make a quick video about that. Just appending that to this video or to this project, so we don't have to do the whole thing again. I'll just show you how that logic would work. But for the most part, this is what we get, and I believe this should also be mobile responsive, correct? So if you say Chicago, Illinois, there you go. So it just pops out like that. Let's try Los Angeles again. Los Angeles, California. There you go. So it's fully responsive. It does what it needs to do, and it gets the job done. So this is a quick one with a modern looking UI, or UX. It's a fairly modern UX. So it's something you can see on an everyday phone as a web app, as a weather application on the web. So if you guys want to use this in your portfolio as a beginner, you go ahead. This actually looks a lot better than the one I did for React. So I might change mine also. So that's it for this video. If you guys enjoyed it, please don't forget to comment, subscribe, and like. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I want to know how you guys feel about object-oriented programming compared to functional. If this is just your intro into JavaScript, how do you like it so far? Let me know how you would want me to improve in these videos. If there's anything that was lacking that you guys would want me to address within the code, just let me know. This is also a great learning process for me because, like I said, I am trying to learn C# and .NET. It's very object-oriented, so writing in object-oriented programming rather than using a React library or a framework would help me. So if you guys have questions, your questions will help me, so I'm able to help myself also while helping you. So yeah, that's it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Once again, don't forget to comment, subscribe, and like, and I will see you guys on the next one. Peace.